Alright, we're basically just going to take stuff from last week and just go a little further with it. So, different strum pattern for exercise 1. Got a combination of gallops and reverse gallops. And all the 8th notes are not palm muted, and all the 16th notes are. So it offers a bit more for a different dynamic on how the strumming will feel. So we'll see how this guy goes. So do some speed demos here. So it's 60. We've got double time. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's hit it at 160. We got like definitely like when you're really getting into it, those 8th notes, I feel like I'm like hitting them harder. I'm not trying to do that, but it happens that way. So you might find yourself kind of tensing up a bit getting into this thing. So kind of a natural thing. So I want to try and strum as relaxed as you can. It's hard, easier said than done on this one. It's kind of hard with all the back and forth between the 8th and the 16th notes there, plus doing the palm mute accent stuff. So let's finish at 200 here. I'll say that again. So let's see, that compared to like the gallop. Gallop's definitely easier to do versus the new thing. So, of course it's a little more difficult. Trying to just push a little bit more with this whole thing. Alright, number 2. Taking the palm mute practice to focus on that downward pick slant a little further. See, we're going to be changing strings every 2 strums instead of usually doing like four notes on a string before changing. So just pushing a bit more and see how this goes. So let's do some more demos here. And you know, something you might want to try is maybe do like a bar at a time if this seems to be extra difficult. I'll definitely practice the transition note though, so maybe just work on this to this and then that to that before putting the whole thing together. But that's if it seems like this is problematic. So that's just one way I would break it down in order to make it a bit easier to get going forward. So 60 beats a minute here. We've got double time. Again. This is definitely a tough one to get. Yeah, because you keep changing strings so quickly. So this should absolutely help prepare you for more string changing type stuff. So let's do 180. One. Let's give it a shot. Why not? Not too bad. Didn't feel too bad. Now you might find that like the faster you go, you might start hitting other strings. Troy calls that swiping. I don't know if we've talked much about that yet, but the way I feel about it, I mean, when you're playing at the slower speeds, try your best not to hit the other strings. But as you start going really fast, that's one reason why I keep wrapping my fingers around the neck like this. Like my thumb's coming over the top, whatnot. Like having my fingers laying fairly, low or flat on the strings there. Like on that one, you can't really get my thumb over the top on that. But it goes back over there. But like I'm using my fingers to help mute the other strings. So this way, if you do swipe through them, basically like if you're going from the E string to the A string, like you might actually hit both the E and the A string as you're transferring from the E to the A string. So as long as that E string is being muted, so you basically like doing like a string rake on that one string, so you can rake through that E string into the A string, and you're really only hearing the note on the A string. So that's something that happens as you go faster and faster and faster. Like when I'm playing stuff at that pace, I'm definitely having to mute with my left hand quite a bit in order to not hear all those other strings. So that's one reason why we have our fingers fairly flat when playing all this shreddy stuff, to mute all the adjacent strings. Because if I had them up all on the tips, you hear all that extra string noise there? Versus... So yeah, gotta mute well faster you get to make sure that you can actually hit the other strings sometimes, and it's not a big deal. But again, playing at the slower speeds, definitely a good idea. Avoid hitting the other strings as much as you can, but eventually you reach a pace, it's damn near impossible to do that. So you just got to make sure your muting game is on point, and then you can do the old swipe method, as Mr. Grady calls it. I think he did a video or an interview where I don't remember the guy's name. I want to say like Hans and Franz something. And they're acoustic players, and they, like when Troy did his close-up stuff of them playing, like they acted like there is no string in the way. They just kind of swiped through it the whole time. Like almost everything they do, they would just ignore trying to skip over a string. They just blast right through it. They also played down at the bridge area where the strings are a lot tighter, which is something I don't like to do when playing this stuff. I mean, it has such a different, not only a different feel, but just like the sound on those notes. It's also much more difficult to try and mute things because your right hand is out of the equation when you're playing, back here. But like the attack of the note, it sounds so much different. Like here I can hear the notes separate more versus playing over here. But I guess when it's playing on an acoustic, it sounds quite different versus distortion. So anyway, let's move on to number 3. So this is continuing with the upstroke, or not upstroke, the upward slant thing you do there. So we're still changing strings after you're doing a downstroke. And stuff like this is commonly referred to as Gilbert sixes. Mr. Paul Gilbert plays a lot of scale runs like this. So basically you're just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes, like going up. Here we're just going up the C scale. We'll end up stopping on the A note. But basically you go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you start the 6 notes again on that same string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down. So yeah, always changing strings after that downstroke. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And that puts you out past the guitar this way. So yeah, this curious to see how this one will go for you. Certainly more difficult, playing something like this instead of just like a single note type thing. But anyway, here we go. This is how it goes at 60. Double time. $160. $200. Do that again. $240. Okay. You can get past 240. Go ahead, keep doing that. Now 240 with the eighth note triples is something I usually like a graduation speed. So you could start working on 6 notes a beat instead of doing the 3 notes a beat. But like if you find that getting up to 240 with this is pretty easy, then go ahead and do 6 notes a beat instead of the 3 notes a beat. But if say you do get to 240 but it's really pushing you, it's really challenging, I would say keep going to 240 from 60 beats a minute and doing the eighth note triplet until it's not too much of a struggle to get up to that 240. Because sometimes, and I've noticed this with myself, like even if I hit that old graduation speed thing I talk about, like if it's really difficult, like I'm giving it everything I got just to get to that point, it doesn't always work out too well when I change the subdivision. So like going from 8th notes to 16th notes on something challenging. So now I kind of use my judgment on like okay, well if I've played it really well in the 8th notes, I got that all the way up, and I'm really struggling on the 16th notes in my next practice session, I'll go back to the 8th note way instead and just kind of run through it that way and then go into the 16th notes right after, and that tends to be helpful. So you can definitely use your judgment on something like this. If you get it to 240, definitely welcome to try doing the 6 notes a beat instead of 3. But when you work on the 6 notes a beat instead of 3, if it's proving to be really challenging to get up to that 120 mark again with the 6 notes a beat, go back to the triplets instead and work that up again that way and see if you can go past the 240 before you start going with the 6 notes a beat again. So if you have any questions with that, please let me know. And yeah, I will talk to you soon.